From the moment James Dean's death became headline news, some people began to wonder if it were actually true. There are two reasons for this. The first is, it is a common human trait for a person to go into denial, once been informed of the death of someone they care about. The second, as in Dean's case, were the inconsistent reports and the carefully staged photos of the stretcher that had supposedly carried Dean's body. Its sheets crisply ironed and clean. Obvious to the untrained eye, no body, living or otherwise, had been laid upon them. But it was not until the findings of the inquest that people began to openly ask the question. Did James Dean survive the car crash? From the music legend John Lennon to fans born long after the supposed death of James Dean in 1955, the question is raised and will never stop being asked, due to the poorly handled inquest and the silence of the key players. Two witnesses to the crash, driving in a vehicle immediately behind the car that collided with Dean's, Tom Frederick and his brother-in-law Don Dooley, stated they saw James Dean in the passenger seat. But they had their accounts of the accident discounted, because they had, quote, an untrained eye. The driver of the car that impacted with Dean's, college student Donald Turnipseed, never spoke publicly of the incident. On the day of the collision, he drove a 5-year-old Ford. He and his pregnant wife lived with family. Within a year, Turnipseed owned a new car and a new home. He died the owner of a multi-million-dollar electrical business in 1995. Tight-lipped to his grave. If James Dean was badly injured and did not die in the crash, what motive would there be to cover it up? The answer is money. The studio had a small fortune tied up in 2 unreleased movies starring Dean. It is important to understand the psyche of the 1950s movie-going public. For example, a toilet had never been mentioned on film, let alone shown in one. Stars had to be seen as above human, flawless. A less than godlike Dean would be box office poison. The actor Montgomery Clift is a prime example of this 1950s mentality, when his career rocketed through the floor after his 1956 car accident. The doubt over James Dean's death will never be put to rest. The fact is a great tragedy and a travesty of justice, occurred on the 30th of September 1955. If James Dean died on that day, then the person responsible was never brought to trial. But it would be an even greater travesty of justice to charge someone with causing the death of another human being, when in fact, no one had actually died. If James Dean did survive the car crash, then James Dean lost everything that day. He lost his identity, his health. He lost his right to a tombstone bearing his name and actual date of death. James Dean had his life taken away from him, literally or figuratively, on that day. And his fans are left to wonder, what really happened?